Malicious texts, sexting and nasty comments via social networking sites. Thousands of teenagers across Europe are being tormented by cyberbullies. Many victims become depressed and in the worst cases take their own lives. With more than 90% of European youngsters regularly using the internet, are we doing enough to protect our children online? Paul Hackett reports.
It's a place where young people frequently go to escape the prying eyes of their parents. But what happens when the playground atmosphere of the internet turns ugly?
It all started very, very quickly, and it all got very dangerous very quickly as well. I didn't know who these people were.
When she was 12, Georgia was bombarded by nasty text messages from her classmates at school. An online hate petition was also set up on a well-known social networking site. Eventually, the bullying snowballed and became so bad, Georgia tried to commit suicide by hanging herself.
Cyberbullying made everything around me unsafe. I couldn't walk into a room in my own house and not feel safe anymore. I couldn't sit down and have dinner with my family without being terrified that my phone would go off and I would receive a hurtful message. It felt like I was caged in my own house.
Unlike traditional bullying, many victims say the cyber aspect makes it almost impossible to escape their tormentors.
With playground bullying, you can walk home, and when it's at home, you're safe, you're with people that you love. But with cyberbullying, it all just follows you 24/7. It is constantly there, and that's what makes it worse.
Parental monitoring is seen as one of the best ways to protect young people when they go online. But like many teenagers, Georgia said nothing to her family.
I didn't tell anyone when I was being bullied because I didn't want to put the stress that was on my shoulders on theirs. I thought that this was my problem, and if I wanted to sort it out, I had to do it myself, not include other people.
That reluctance among victims to tell their parents and suffer in silence is far from unique. Recent research suggests 6% of 9 to 16-year-olds in Europe have received a nasty or hurtful message online at some point. But perhaps more worrying is the fact that many parents seem blissfully unaware that this is happening to their child, a staggering 56%. Scott Freeman is the founder of the Cyber Smile Foundation based in the UK. He set up the charity to raise awareness after his own daughter was severely tormented by cyber trolls. Eventually, she was forced to leave home and live in another part of the country. Despite that, Scott insists calls to ban certain social media sites is not the answer.
I think people are scared of cyberbullying. It's something that you cannot quantify and you can't hold and control, and that's the important thing. People need just to accept that it's a problem with behaviour and that we just need to educate, raise awareness. It's all about education. Education for parents, education for children, and education for the bullies themselves who often don't know they are.
The most important thing if you're being bullied or you think you're being bullied is to sit down and talk to someone about it, because I didn't, and it almost cost me my life. And for parents to make sure they know what's going on in their child's social networking life, to know who their friends are, to know what they're saying, but still let them have that freedom at the same time.
Joining me now to discuss this issue further is Niall Cowley, director of the British-based charity Beat Bullying, and Janice Richardson from the InSafe network, which coordinates helplines in 30 countries across Europe. Thank you very much for joining us on the front line. Niall, I'd like to begin with you. We hear Georgia's story, and it's probably every parent's worst nightmare. How can a situation escalate to such a point that a child wants to take their own lives?
Young people don't necessarily want to go to an adult or an authority figure for help with bullying because they feel, as in Georgia's case in that piece, they feel that they don't want to overburden their parents or their family, but also they don't want to bring any sort of suspicion of weakness on themselves. And particularly if the issue that they're, or the type of bullying that they're receiving is particularly difficult for them to deal with, such as homophobic bullying, they don't want to arouse suspicion, or even they don't want to. They may be of an age where they're not ready to deal with that themselves. So they block it out, they don't ask for help, and they end up suffering completely alone.
But don't you think that that's rather a pity that we're focusing on bullying? Because in fact all of this happens much, much earlier. We did hear a gentleman speak about the importance of education. Yeah. And I think that the social and emotional learning, which we're just starting to talk about, is in fact very important from the age of 2 or 3, from birth.
So you think you could stop cyberbullying right from the start, that kids would never want to do this?
I think so.
Isn't it human nature?
It is human nature to jibe at each other, but we should look at the definition of bullying. It's repetitive, it's a power play, and if a young person has the emotional and social learning to know how to react, then it doesn't get to the point of bullying. This is why we really think that there is a lot to be done, and why focus on bullying, which is in fact the end result of something that's happened.
If my child is being bullied, why don't I just remove their mobile phone and restrict access to the internet?
Because that actually is punishing the child who is suffering already and not allowing the child to have the support of peers, which is important, but I wouldn't agree with peers just for bullying. We run several thousand youth panels across 30 countries. And what we find is that if young people work together, even from the age of 4 or 5 years old, they can give each other support in life skills without pointing the finger at bullying.
At a fundamental level, we can cut out bullying behaviour if we intervene and educate young people better at an early age. But until we're at that stage, it's really important to identify when bullying takes place and signpost young people to services that are available right now. And if that does mean that we have to talk about the issue and to extract conversations around the issue, then unfortunately that is something that we must do.
A lot of this is taking place, obviously, most of this is taking place on social networking sites. Facebook is the biggest. Now, we did invite Facebook onto the programme. They weren't able to come, but they did send us a statement. And they said, at Facebook, we take safety incredibly seriously and have worked hard for years to develop clear rules and powerful reporting tools that enable people to easily report things that make them uncomfortable. They go on to say after that, unfortunately, there'll always be a tiny number of malicious people who are intent on harming others, online and offline. They do have a point. If we're looking at responsibility, does the responsibility lie with them or with the individuals?
Well, responsibility for bullying should always be shared. The most important thing is behaviour, though. And if we change the behaviour successfully of young people, then Facebook won't need to have reporting mechanisms, and Facebook won't need to have quicker takedown times and all of the things that they're failing to do at the moment. But until we have that, and we don't have that yet, but until we have that, Facebook are failing in protecting the safety of their young users.
I wouldn't really agree with this because, first of all, young people are on Facebook, they are on social media, that's where they meet. But if we didn't have these innovative tools, then there would be a lot of lost opportunities for young people. And also, I do think that many social media companies, including Facebook, are taking this very seriously.
From our point of view, I see that Facebook is trailing quite significantly behind the other major players in the sector, for the simple reason that Facebook have a policy of confirming the identity of all of their users, which I know I can, and I'm sure you can too, go onto Facebook after this show and set up an anonymous profile. And until Facebook make that impossible to do, Facebook is not going to be safe for vulnerable children.
If you've read the terms and conditions, this is really one element that Facebook insists on. People shouldn't be setting up.
It may be their policy, but it is not their practice.
Don't you think that we need to get young people really to read these terms and conditions? I think we can't blame the tools.
Well, we have seen that the EU and the US did launch the Global Alliance. Now, this is mostly to help children who are involved in child abuse situations online. Is there the international pickup to actually follow up on this, though?
Well, certainly, and the Alliance is not only to help abused children. The Alliance also has a fourth facet, which is to raise awareness of young people who are actually putting self-generated nude or almost nude images online.
Now, are kids aware that the images they post online of themselves, sometimes very compromising, can't be deleted?
Some young people will be very aware that the comments they're making and certainly the images that they're uploading or that they are tagged in are potentially permanent, because even if they're deleted, all it takes is for somebody else to have taken a screenshot of that, and then that is out of their control. It's very difficult to say if kids are aware. Some are aware and some are not aware, and it's trying to standardise that understanding requires a great deal of work, and that's what we're working on.
I would just like from both of you, in a nutshell, advice. Advice for parents, advice for children.
Parents, speak to your children from the very first moment. Share online activities, because for young people there's no real life and online life. It is all life. Secondly, I would say there are a lot of organisations out there to help you. Reach out at the very first problem so that it doesn't grow into bullying or sexting or something similar.
No?
I would echo that completely. It's exactly the right advice. Parents shouldn't punish their children and shouldn't try to police their online behaviour. And for young people to just remember that being a bystander to bullying behaviour is being an accomplice. And even if you think that something is funny, or if you think that encouraging somebody because they're being funny is not a good way to behave, and it is contributing to an overall bullying effect of bullying, which might have exponential consequences to the person that you're directing that behaviour to.
Thank you both very much. It's estimated that at least 15% of 11 to 16-year-olds in Europe have received a sext. That's a message talking about sex or a sexually explicit image. Let us know what you think about this issue in general. You can contact us on social media. In the meantime, On the Front Line is back next month.